Good evening, good evening. Hello, everyone. How is everyone today? I hope everyone's well. I had a good weekend. So we're gonna pick up where we left off on these rocks. I've just got a couple of lines done whilst the stream was starting up, so we'll continue on here and try and get this bit finished this evening. I've got a couple of I got one announcement regarding next year's Patreon series and stuff to go through. So we'll carry on with that in a little bit, but for now I'll just carry on carving for a minute. Hi George, how are you? Happy Koenigsdag. I hope I pronounced that correct, Nigel. So I hope you're having a great day, having a good, well-deserved day off. So I've got the chat down here, so I don't have to keep looking up. I can hopefully just look in front of me and be a bit more concise. So the last couple of days I've been working on the monster block set for the Avatar print. It's printing wise it's not too complex, but the actual sort of makeup of the block set is itself rather complex. There's a lot of areas that overlap each other to create different sort of tones. So there's sort of two shades of green, one that's more of a cool tone and one that's a bit more of a warm tone. So to do that, we use the same tone of green, but one is based with yellow and one is based with a blue. And there's there's 3 or 4 brown tones that create varying shadows and deepening of a couple of the skin tones. A couple of the characters have a little bit darker pigmentation of the skin, so there's some browns and stuff that will sit below the standard skin tones to create a sort of darker tone to that. Hi Ben, how are you? So now we're starting to get everyone coming in. So announcement for Patreon next year. Well, I say next year. The current Patreon series will conclude with the final design in July, and I'll be announcing that final image on Thursday's stream and showing off the design that we've got. But the new series is going to be the Yoshitoshi prints that we spoke of last Thursday, and I'm going to use the Hanshita, the uncarved, the designs that were never made. But what I'm going to do is create vignettes of them, meaning I am going to crop in really tightly. Instead of producing miniature versions of very, very complex prints, I'm going to focus in on the faces of the characters, and they're going to be produced in sort of a postcard size format, and there will be a collection of faces from there. There's one that's sort of a ghost, sort of demon type design. There's a couple of warriors in there. There's a female character with like long flowing hair, so it's going to be really complex, really fine carving, and will be sort of single colour. Be slightly smaller than the current Patreon series, but the complexity of each design is massively increased in terms of the carving. So instead of carving for a couple of weeks and then printing for a couple of weeks, it's sort of going to be carving for a good few weeks, a good 3-4 weeks, and then a couple of days to just run the batches out. So the goal is to sort of highlight Yoshitoshi's famous line work in the faces and things like that, and the expressions, and really push myself on the carving front. And the series will be called The Many Faces of Tsukioka Yoshitoshi. Me and Jed sat and sort of worked through the concept of it the other day. The designs are already decided upon, and there's not really any tracing involved either, seeing as they're really very clear scans that the British Museum own. I'll be using them, and pretty much there'll be some very light editing to sort of remove some dust and blemishes and things, and then it'll be straight on the block and carving Yoshitoshi's original line work. So I'm really excited for that. I'm really excited. Hopefully, George, hopefully it will be interesting. Hopefully everyone is going to find it as exciting as... Hopefully everyone's going to be as excited for it as I am to produce it and work on it and show you guys. And it's going to be really good because I'm going to be able to stream the whole process of producing these images. Because I'm only printing a single colour, it's going to give me the opportunity to be able to stream the actual printing process, and we can create a more produced, more sort of considered video series based around the project and stuff. And we can sort of talk a bit about the history of these sort of lost prints, and see what sort of information, background information we can dig up, and then intersperse that with the actual production of the prints, the carving and printing process, and I'll be able to stream all that as well. And there will be that video series will be a part of the Patreon package then. they'll be sort of made as short sort of updates of the process and linking in with a little bit of history and things like that. So it won't just be YouTube content, it'll be something actually a bit more special for the Patreons, because I've promised that in the past and haven't been able to deliver, and I'd like to deliver something a little bit more special for you guys, seeing as you've been so good to me over the past year and stuck with me. Exactly, yeah, and that's really what I would like to highlight there, George. Really focusing on those faces, from a technical point of view of myself, of wanting to expand my skills and push and challenge myself a bit further. It's everyone always talks about Yoshitoshi's crazy lines he did for clothing and things like that, and the sort of depth and stuff of the print, but I think it's really in the faces and the expressions and stuff that he was able to create that really gives the character to his designs. So as this current run of Patreon comes to a close, I will be working on the announcement video. The announcement video will go live on YouTube and Instagram and things like that, and we can start to sort of build a little bit of interest and try and expand this community a little bit further, maybe. So yeah, what do you guys think to a sort of a bit of a deep dive into Yoshitoshi and the sort of facial expressions and stuff, and pulling from a series that's never been produced? Sort of try and pay homage to one of the last great masters. And another exciting development is I've placed a rather large order of wood to produce some blocks with, and this is, if you guys remember, from the stockist that I first purchased blocks from. So I'm going to get a really good idea of the quality of the timber across a really large batch of blocks. And it's a very slow process, me getting to be able to sort of stock these for people to purchase. But hopefully we'll be able to maybe do some streams based around the production of these blocks and stuff, and sort of show off the process a little bit more and speak a bit more in depth about that down the line as well. Yeah, and hopefully we can make a couple of videos about that. Videos that are more sort of YouTube specific. And sort of show that off, because it's not just cherry wood that this applies to. You can I know people that are making blocks with magnolia and things like that. So it's not necessarily having to go out and purchase the more expensive cherry and sort of go through that hassle. The process can be applied in a lot of different ways. another announcement as well. I haven't quite fully worked out the details and stuff yet, but I am nearing 5,000 followers on Instagram, which is crazy to me that many people would take an interest in me posting pictures of pieces of wood. But I will be doing a excuse me, I'll be doing a giveaway when I reach 5,000, and I'm not 100% sure which print it will be, but there will be a select few people chosen at random that will be from the follower list on Instagram that will receive a print once I hit 5,000. So if you are not following me on Instagram, then make sure you do, because then you can become eligible to receive a free print from me. Yeah, it's only a 5,000 to 1 chance. Yeah, I have a few designs that I've never released, so it will most likely be one of those, and the print will go on sale alongside that, alongside the sort of 5,000 marker, and a select few people, probably 10 or so, will receive the design free. Yeah, so we do. So the process that we do to get there. So the wood is all run out, meaning cut to size and width and stuff with the supplier. We then get sent it bound and stuff so it doesn't warp. And the process will then be of us producing the blocks from this wood, so trimming it down to size, gluing it to the plywood cores, and then doing the finishing on the blocks, so doing the planing and things like that. But it's an interesting process, and it's one I feel should be highlighted and shown. It's sort of good promotion for us when we actually get our act together a bit more to be able to start selling the things one day. Because the key blocks and stuff I order from Japan, as you guys know. Ordering 5 blocks, which will give me 10 key blocks, but ordering 5 blocks from Japan costs the same, well, £70 less than me purchasing enough wood to make 24 blocks. over here, which is pretty crazy. Yeah, and we're sort of, it'd be interesting as well, George, showing the preparation and stuff, because we're learning to use the Japanese planes and stuff. We're not wet sanding it. I was wet sanding them previously, but we're figuring out how to use the Japanese planes and stuff to do all the finishing and things with. So if you want to see a couple of English guys struggling to use Japanese tools, then this will be the video series for you. But the wood's expected to be here in about 6 weeks or so, so we've got a bit of time before then. Do a bit of preparation and planning and practice and stuff. I don't notice a great difference. So the only thing I have noticed is blocks that, when we first started wet sanding them, I was going, I think I went a bit too far on trying to get that sort of glassy surface on the block. I was wet sanding all the way up to a 5000 grit piece of sandpaper, and when you're wet sanding, okay, obviously you know the surface is wet and the paper is wet and stuff as well, and you're sanding, and like a slurry builds up on the surface, and you wipe it away and you wash the block off and stuff. But my sort of estimate, or my guess, is that moving through the grades so fine created a sort of slurry that was so fine that it was very hard to wash out. So there was quite a few blocks that became quite hard to print on, because it didn't feel like the pigment was penetrating well enough into the block, and it was coming out rather mottled, and I'd have to go back in with my Nagora stone and like sand, like take the sheen off the block to try and like sort of raise the grain back up a bit to get a really clean impression. But once I sort of figured that out and didn't go as crazy with it the second time, I haven't noticed too much of a difference. The biggest difference is in the time it takes. The last block set that I wet sanded took me 3 days to do the block set, and planing it, we could probably plane the whole set in a day with the 2 planes that we have. So it's just it's purely a cost over time matter to do that, to learn to plane them. It's going to save us so much more time and then money in the long run to be able to do it like that. But a lot of the blocks nowadays from wood like Matsumura, they're all wet sanded now. The majority of the ones that you get that are shipped worldwide are wet sanded. Do I think blocks would last longer over many impressions? I don't understand what you mean. Do you mean wet or dry, wet sanding or planed would last longer, George? I don't think that really makes too much of a difference. The wear on the blocks really comes down to the care, the aftercare, and the printing process. If you're sort of rubbing the Baron very aggressively across the blocks, then it will wear the blocks down faster. Also, certain pigments will wear through a block quicker, coarser pigments, so greens, some blues, the sort of mineral based pigments and stuff will sort of wear the block down faster over time. And also, if you're producing very large if you're producing really large batches of prints and not giving the blocks sufficient rest between, then the lifespan of the block will deteriorate as well. Because if you can imagine, the wood's wet when you're printing, so it's a little bit softer, and when wood's soft it can be compressed and sort of worn down easier. So if you were to produce a batch of prints that was, say, 200 prints, and then a couple of weeks later you got that same block set out and produced another 200 prints, it's going to wear down way faster than if you did a batch of 50, waited a couple of months, then another batch of 50, then waited a couple of months, like that. Or even a batch of 100 and waited a couple of months. It's all, the lifespan of the block is how you care for it after when you're not using it, coupled with the types of pigments and the amount of pressure that you're using. So when you see the old blocks that Dave recarves on streams for the print parties and stuff, you'll generally see him recarving green blocks first, and yellow blocks and blue and things like that. Areas with like sort of wider areas as well, sort of islands, will wear down faster. A key block will last a lot longer because it's finer, so you're not taking as hard an impression, and the pigment and stuff isn't abrasive in any ways, and you're generally, a key block is the one block in the whole set that you take the most amount of care of. So you'll see a key block last a lot longer than the colour blocks. But no, long answer, long. No, I don't think there is a specific advantage to wet or dry sanding to increase the lifespan of the blocks, but I could be entirely wrong. As always, most likely I'm wrong somewhere in that. Just from what I know, that seems to be the case. No problem, George. It's an interesting topic, though. I'm not sure that anyone has ever really, because the whole wet sanding of the blocks and stuff is really like only been started in the last couple of years. Up until that point, all the blocks were always planed from Matsumoto and everyone. So I don't know if a block set has really been around long enough to truly have been tested that's been wet sanded. So come back in 5 years and ask me about the alien print when I've done a few more reprints, and I'll tell you how it's holding up. But certainly with producing blocks, the wet sanding is the most user-friendly way of doing it. What sort of Sumi ink do I use? I use 2 seconds, Nigel. I'll just grab it. I use Yatsumoto Sumi Ink Black. I got this in Japan, but you can get it anywhere. It's like the most basic, cheapest form of Sumi Ink, and it works perfect. It's pretty cheap. You can get it anywhere in the world because it's just a standard like calligraphy ink. Never use it raw, if that makes sense. It's always some degree, without fail, there is always some degree of water mixed in with the Sumi. The Sumi itself is, even if it's just 2% water, the Sumi itself is very sticky. It's essentially like a glue. To make the Sumi, there's like a sort of glue additive combined with it, and you run a very high chance of, if you're taking impressions, or if anyone's ever taken an impression and just used sort of oh, my apologies. If anyone's ever taken an impression using raw Sumi ink, and the paper's ever sort of stuck to the block and you peel it up and it sort of peels layers of the paper away, then that's why. A tiny drop of paste and a little bit of water goes a long way with using the Sumi. And by and large, a lot of colours, a lot of times, generally, a rule of thumb, and I've sort of took this sort of ethos from Dave and Mokahankan, is never use colours just as they are, raw, out of the jar. Always mix something with them. So if it's like a blue or something, just a tiny touch of black or something like that, if that makes sense. Every colour is a mixed colour regardless. Always try and mix the colours rather than using just get your Prussian blue and just use your Prussian blue as is. Always try and just mix a tiny bit of something else in, and it makes a really big difference to the depth of your prints. And some pigments don't. Some pigments are very hard to print with. Indigo is rather hard to dissolve. It sort of sits like if you've ever sort of just poured cocoa into milk and it sort of just sits on the top. It's a little bit like that. So I find indigo mixed with a very small touch of Prussian blue to lighten it, or to slightly darken, just a drop of Sumi, also helps in breaking the pigment down ready for use. And then in the whole world of browns and things like that, there's so many combinations, adding touches of reds and yellows and even blues to and greys and stuff to brown tones. Sort of take the cue from the Shinhanger artists. They were the masters of mixing colour, and that's something that Dave and Mokahankan have really sort of pushed, and that's sort of what I gleaned from watching them. Is, and I feel like it's really adds something new to adds something a little bit extra to the prints that you're making, and it teaches you a lot about colour theory and balance and stuff. It really makes you sit and think. It's very easy to just take a pigment from the tub and just apply it and stuff, but to sort of think about your balance of colour and think about the depth and tone and things makes a huge difference in your final outcomes in your printing. Yeah, so Nigel, that's interesting that you say that, printing in different levels of grey. Dave has a print, I can't remember the name, but there is a print in Dave's catalogue that they produced that is just that. It is differing, it is monochrome, but actually every single grey tone has a colour in it. So while it looks completely monochrome, it's actually very, very, very subtly a full colour image. And it's of I'm almost certain it's of a small waterfall or a body of water at the base of some cliff. If anyone off the top of their head can remember what that print is, but it's full of reds and blues and browns and stuff and greens, but in passing it looks like a completely monochrome print. So I would, if you're looking to really learn a lot about colour theory, I would study that print, and I would very, very much encourage you to have a go at a project like that. You'll learn a ton about it, about the mixing of colours and how to apply that to your prints. And Hokusai manga, also the famous Hokusai manga, was produced very similarly. It's a key block with a grey and then a very pale grey sort of flesh tone colour. And that's a perfect example of sort of Sumi added to normal colours. Look at this, we're right on target to finish this part by the end of the stream. My eyes are exhausted. I've been carving all day today. Fortunately, I haven't been key block carving, so it's not been too taxing. But still, staring down like this for a whole day, it's tough on the eyes. Yeah, that's the one, the rainy season Fuji one. That's actually all colour. When you look really, really closely, it works a lot when you see it in person and you hold it, and you're sort of able to hold it in the light properly and really see like the depth of it. That's one thing I really feel like I lack in my production of prints. Is not that I lack, but one thing I really admire in what Dave and Mokahan can produce, and something I'm always trying to emulate, is the sort of subtlety of colour. Even something that's super bright looks super bright on the surface. The colours and the balance is so subtle and considered. And that's something I'm always really, really conscious of when I'm trying to print and trying to produce an image, is not not to be sort of vulgar in my choices of colour and the balance and things. To really try and be subtle with the way that I mix the colours and the tonal values and things like that. And obviously I've still got a long way to go because I haven't been at this very long at all, but that's a really big goal of mine. But yeah, the Doi hanger prints, yeah, they are expensive, but they're classic as well, and there's so much work that goes into them, so they sort of do command the price. Yeah, correct. Yeah, you are correct there, Nigel. Yeah, there's something about sort of monochrome black and white that's really I find really tasteful, and I'd love to really like dive into that fully at some point, if not just for my own amusement, if nothing else. So my apologies again. I have no sort of show and tell this evening, but Thursday we will have the sort of announcement for the fourth and final Patreon print in the series of birds. That will be Thursday. So we can look through that and stuff and have a bit of a chat about that and talk about the books and things. And from then on, we can start doing some more discussion-based things about the Yoshitoshi one that's going to be coming up, and carry on with this. We're making really good progress. I'll be starting back up in these crabs and things on Thursday. I'll try and get a bit of clearing work done because I got the hammer and chisels out and stuff this week anyway. So I'll try and get all this cleared out a little bit so that we can see what's going on. But we are flying through this nice little print here. But that's going to be it for this evening. Thank you everyone for taking the time to drop in and for sticking with me as always. And everyone stay safe. Have a great week. Stay healthy, and I will see you all again on Thursday. Thank you very much. Thank you.